Hi gamers, welcome back to the One Block of Bedrock survival series, where we go from one block of bedrock in vanilla-ish Minecrafts to whatever it is we end up doing in this episode. I've got a few ideas as to what we might be able to do, but it'll all depend on how much we can get done in the Nether. Before we get going on that, there's a couple things that I need to housekeep since last episode. The first thing we need to fix up is all the little structures we have built around the base that could do with a bit of tidy up. I'm also going to clean up this little ring that goes around the mob farm, because when I was editing the time-lapse last episode, it looked really dumb. I figured that since I actually put effort into designing this thing, I may as well make it look like I designed it too. Also, something else that I should address from the last episode is the absolute outcry for me to finally get a bed. I know, there's only 12 spiders between me and never having to deal with a phantom ever again, but I think I've got an alternate strategy that'll work really nicely with what we're planning to do this episode. Speaking of, what are my goals for going into the Nether this episode? There's a few obvious ones like me getting a lava bucket and just looting whatever I can, but there is one rare item in the Nether that I'm really going to be looking out for, and that is the golden apple. If I can get my hands on just one golden apple, then I'll gain access to trading and things are just going to blow up from there. Now, in theory, I could just get a golden apple from crafting together some apples and gold. Apples drop from oak trees, and oak tree saplings can be bought from the wandering trader. But there's a couple of issues with that approach. Issue number one is that we don't have enough emeralds to trade with the wandering trader. And issue number two is that we'd be trading with the wandering trader. And we all know how that's going to go. So yeah, with that we're pretty much ready to go into the Nether. I'm not sure what to expect from this, but hopefully we're going to be somewhere near where we can get a golden apple and whatever else we need. Huh, this is kind of familiar. It's like the first episode where I spawned in the end, surrounded by endstone. At least this time I've got a pickaxe, so getting out of here should be as simple as picking a random direction and then just digging for a while. After not too long, I find myself some nether gold ore. This stuff is going to be incredibly useful for piglin bartering, but unfortunately my silk touch pickaxe turns it into an ore form, and we're going to need to smelt it. Although apparently using silk touch is the most efficient way to get gold from this block, so maybe it's not so bad. Not long after that, I find the ends of the tunnel, and I'm introduced to the nether proper. I build myself a little staircase so I can get back in, plus an endstone pillar so I can find the place where I came out of. Then I almost immediately get attacked by a ghast, which triggers my brain to enter combat mode. I immediately eat a chorus root to top up my hunger, and then I realise that eating chorus root in the Nether is probably going to get me killed. So I run off to harvest some ground mushrooms and start working towards a non-teleporting food supply. I'm also going to need some red mushrooms, but there's a bit of an issue. By now you've probably noticed that I'm playing on a really tiny render distance here. So I'm going to bump it up while I'm in the Nether, but later in the episode I'll give you a good example of why I keep it so low. After not too long, I find myself a good supply of red mushrooms, so I harvest those and head back to make mushroom stew. But when I start making mushroom stew, I remember that it's kind of just the worst. So I'm going to need a better food supply if I'm going to go exploring into the Nether. And now might be a good time to start going down the rabbit hole of cobblestone generation. To do that, we're going to need a bucket of lava, so cue one really quick trip into the Nether where I get a lava bucket and return immediately. Alright, now it's time to make Cobblestone Generator Mark 1. This first design is probably the simplest version of a cobblestone generator that you're going to find online. It's a fairly slow design, but I'm sure a lot of people would have played through an entire skyblock world using just this design alone. The way it works is fairly simple. When flowing water touches flowing lava, then the flowing lava will be converted into cobblestone. You'll see here in this video that there's a bit of a tug of war going on between the water and the lava. The movement is all determined by which one spreads first, whether it be the flowing water or the flowing lava. If the water updates first, which it often does, it'll push the cobblestone towards the lava's end. But if the lava activates first, then it will keep the cobblestone at the same spot. This normally goes until the water spreads all the way to the lava block, which it will turn into obsidian. Source blocks of lava will turn into obsidian, whereas flowing lava or non-source blocks will turn into cobblestone. This is why most designs will have some mechanism of not letting the water ever reach the lava. In our basic design, we just do this by making the water flow downwards and out of the map. So that means every time that we generate a block of cobblestone here, it's because the lava spread towards the water. But in the overworld, lava spreads pretty slowly, and we're not generating nearly enough cobblestone to fill up the full bandwidth of our diamond pickaxe. That means it's time to design something better. Or more accurately, I'm going to try and recreate a design that I used 2 years ago when I was playing Skyblock. Speaking of, that time I played Skyblock 2 years ago kinda led to my entire YouTube channel. I remember going through the Skyblock starting items and wondering just why the game would give us pumpkin seeds if they were obtainable through the Wandering Trader. And that thought grew and grew until I realised that just one block of grass could do almost everything you could in Skyblock. That whole concept was something I found so interesting that I felt I could finally justify making my YouTube channel out of it. I've wanted to make a YouTube channel for an incredibly long amount of time, but I always felt that I needed a reason to exist as a channel. There are tens of thousands of gaming channels already out there with fantastic personalities behind them and brilliant editing that I would have to compete with in order to make people want to watch my content. With this idea for a Minecraft video, I felt like I had something worth saying, that other people would be interested enough to justify its existence in the ocean of gaming content already on the internet. Now, this wasn't the first time that I had one of these ideas that I thought I could turn into a YouTube channel. In fact, the Minecraft idea was the third one of them. The first one being something that I'll probably talk about at some other point in time, and the second one being the Factorio video that I eventually made about a year later. But it was the Minecraft video that finally gave me the momentum to actually edit and finish the thing. I felt like I had something really special on my hands. So I posted it to the Technical Minecraft subreddit, possibly against their rules, and I got a few hundred people to excitedly watch it and say that it was really good. So from there I was ready for it to slowly build up over time until people noticed my channel. But over the next year I got almost no new people watching it. That video, which now has 1.3 million views, sat at less than 1,000 views for the first year and a half of its existence. It really sucked that this video wasn't performing nearly as well as I hoped it would, and I wasn't going to post it on Reddit again because I would probably get my account taken down. So I figured my best option was to just keep making content until people discovered my channel. I started working on video number 2 of 3, the how long would it take to beat Factorio with as little automation as possible video. And making that thing was utterly brutal. The entire time I was thinking, I need to get this thing right. I can't let this opportunity slip away like the Minecraft video did. That thing performed terribly. So this time I'm going to fix it. I'm going to have backing music for every scene, I'm going to put together elaborate visuals for every calculation, and I'm going to re-record the opening about 100 times to get it just right, because that's apparently the most important part of the video. Yeah, it was not a good time making that thing. But once the video came out, how did it do then? Well, within the first 30 days, the thing got 85 views. Not what I was hoping for, given that I'd probably spent close to 200 hours on the thing. But at least this time, it was getting some amount of attention without me having to rely on external sources. It gave me a little bit of hope that I could maybe grow this thing out naturally and slowly, and that over time people would discover my back catalogue of videos, and then maybe something would go from there. But that wasn't really what happened. The reason that my channel actually picked up all the momentum that it did is because of another video I posted. One that, statistically speaking, you probably haven't watched because it's the least viewed video on my channel. And it was also the least effort I ever put into a video. I'm talking about the Factorio C-block time-lapse that I posted about a month after the Factorio video. The whole idea behind this video was that I was completely burnt out after the Factorio video, and I wanted to make something low effort that people would actually watch. And as it turns out, that was probably the best decision I ever made on the channel. You see, the thing about my Minecraft and Factorio videos is that no one will go into the YouTube search bar and search for how would you play through most of Minecraft from one block of grass. But time-lapses? People will watch time-lapses of almost anything, especially Factorio. So I figured this would be a decent way of getting a steady source of people checking out my channel. And the crazy thing about it is that it kinda worked. The time-lapse video would consistently bring in a really small number of people, But that was enough to kickstart the exponential growth that my channel would go through for the next month or so. It was exciting, and ironically, it was all because I made a low effort video at a time when I was feeling completely burnt out. Anyway, that was the brief history of my channel for people who didn't need to hear it. Now we can get back to the Minecraft stuff. And look, we have a really cool cobblestone generator here. This design will use a water stream to push all the things that we dig up towards where we're standing. And since there are 5 different places where we're generating cobblestone, it's actually fast enough to make use of our diamond pickaxe. Plus, this design only uses 1 block of lava, which made it really useful about 2 years ago when I was playing Skyblock. Nowadays, it doesn't make much of a difference because you can infinitely renew lava, but I guess it works quite nicely because I only had to make 1 trip into the Nether to build this thing. Anyway, now that we have all of this cobblestone, it's time to put it to use doing some stuff. The first thing I made was a few furnaces so I could smelt something? I don't know, there was nothing really to smelt at this point in time. I was thinking about smelting for stone to help expand my moss collection, but then I remembered that I could just get stone by combining lava and water. So I ended up just placing some furnaces on the side of the base, and I used some of the stone that I collected while building the cobblestone generator to expand the moss garden into a nice place to grow trees. Well, it would have been a nice place to grow trees if the phantoms didn't turn up immediately. I really need to get a bed, and I know I've been talking about that for several episodes, but this episode I've actually got a plan in mind as to how we can get string, so look forward to that. After dealing with the phantoms and waiting for the sun to rise, I got to work harvesting a bunch of trees. To do this, I decided to make a diamond axe using the diamonds that I picked up in the end, which made the woodcutting process a whole lot easier. Also, now that I had more than 2 moss blocks to grow trees on, there was no longer a risk of me turning both blocks into rooted dirt, or even an enderman running off with one of the blocks. I could turn as many of these moss blocks into rooted dirt as I wanted, because moss blocks were now infinitely renewable, which meant rooted dirt was infinitely renewable, which meant that regular dirt would also be infinitely renewable, since we can easily turn rooted dirt into regular dirt. We could then use that regular dirt for farming, and we could have a good supply of food. With that idea in mind, I decided to make an absolutely huge amount of dirt, but I wasn't going to go about it in the way you'd expect. I'm just going to build some stuff for the next minute or so, and you can try and figure out what I'm going to do. Instead of digging up a bunch of cobblestone and then smelting it into smooth stone, I figured I could just generate an island of smooth stone and then place some moss in the middle. Whenever lava spreads onto water, but from above, it'll convert the water into smooth stone, which I can then mine up with my Silk Touch pickaxe. We'll probably end up needing to use the smooth stone for something down the line, but the main thing I'm going for here is an absolute boatload of moss. So I go through quite a few rounds of making little pillars of lava and then letting it spread out, converting the stone into moss, and then harvesting it all up. After not too long, I have more moss than I could ever possibly use, so I decide to tidy the entire thing up by converting all the water back into stone one final time. Then I convert the entire thing into moss, and then I get attacked by a bunch of phantoms. I know, I'm working on it, don't worry, it'll happen soon. After dealing with the phantoms, I patch up the final bits of water and get to work on harvesting the outer layer of moss. As I'm going around, I notice that there's a bit of cobblestone that's spilled over to the side. I think I might have made a few cobblestone generators when I let the lava overflow, but hopefully it's nothing too bad. Hopefully. Oh no. I just made Conway's game of life here. As cool as it is, I have to clean this stuff up. This thing's going to start hurting the mob farm. Like, the mob farm's going to stop working because all the mob cap is just down there. How am I going to clean that up? Holy crap. Okay, if I actually want to clean this thing up, I'm probably going to need access to firework rockets so that if I get knocked into the void somehow, I can get back up. Alternatively, I could just go down there and die, but I'd rather have all my levels used up before that. So let's keep going with our path of progression. The next thing to do is to convert a bunch of this moss into the dirt that we were going for since the start. I make a bunch of trees, and then chop them down to reveal the rooted dirt beneath them. Well, you know, I chop down most of them, but the rest of them are just easier to burn to death, so let's do that. And then there's one final thing we need before we can make a farm, and that's a hoe. I could have made this out of any material in the game, but come on. If I have the diamonds, I may as well use them. If I can get what I need from the Nether this episode, I shouldn't be too far off an infinite supply of diamond tools and armor, so this isn't as bad as it seems. Also, check out this weird stuff dropped by the rooted dirt when we use a hoe on it. It's like fuzzy stuff. I didn't know it existed until now. Anyway, now it's time to actually build the farm. I've turned the cobblestone generator into a little waterfall that should be able to irrigate the crops. In terms of what we're actually going to be able to grow here, I've managed to get some carrots and potatoes from rare drops from zombies, plus I was able to get some seeds when I bone mealed the moss blocks, and I was also able to get some beetroot from the end, I think. I do also have some melon seeds that I got from the wandering trader, but I didn't plant them because anything that gives just 2 points of hunger isn't going to be a good food source. And speaking of food sources, I mean lovable pets, we got another chicken to spawn in the mob farm. Since this chicken spawned in with a baby zombie riding it, it won't be able to lay any eggs for some reason. If we want to get a chicken that can lay eggs, we'll have to breed two of these guys together using seeds. That's why I'm putting this little chicken away for safekeeping. Come on in here, buddy. Thanks, Microsoft. I can always count on you to make my Minecraft experience slightly worse. Anyway, let's get back to our preparations for our next Nether trip. I'm going to be taking a bunch of cooked potatoes into the Nether with me because they're by far the best food source we have at the moment. In fact, I probably should devote this entire farm area to potatoes. Ah well, for now we can just bone meal stuff and then cook them into baked potatoes. While these potatoes cooked, I wandered around the base for a bit, and as night fell, I started to notice that the mob farm wasn't going as fast as it usually did. I checked down below, and unsurprisingly, Conway's Game of Life is just full of mobs. I'll have to deal with this at some point, but for now, the next Nether trip takes priority. So I sort out my inventory, and bring a bunch of gold ready to barter with some piglins. This trip should have a better chance of getting somewhere now that we have a really good supply of food. Thank you, Phantom. So I should probably reiterate what my goals are for this trip into the Nether. The main thing I want to find is a golden apple, but I would also be really keen to find some nether wart or anything else, or even another chicken. Yeah, I'm going to need a lead for this guy, so head back to base really quickly, grab a lead, and go right back in. This time, the Phantom isn't going to be so lucky because I don't want it damaging the chicken. I don't know if it can damage the chicken, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, you're coming with me, chicken. Unless I can't attach the lead because there's a zombie piglin on it. I need to kill the zombie piglin, but I can't risk aggroing every other zombie piglin in an area nearby. So I devise a nice little plan, where the chicken will kill its master for me. Good chicken. As a reward for helping me out, I decided to lock the chicken in a cage with the other chicken, and I gave them some seeds to have a good time. Go on, buddy, you earned it. Okay, seriously though, we are about 20 minutes into this episode, and we haven't even started exploring the Nether properly. So let's get on to that. Alright, I'm back in the Nether, and first of all, I'm going to try and trade with this guy to see what I can get. There's also another piglin in the distance, so I'm going to try and lure them together so I can trade with both of them at once. Okay, I don't know how well that worked, but we managed to get a few good items here. The most important one is probably this potion of fire resistance. If I end up falling in lava, this thing is pretty likely to save my life. The other really nice item these guys trade for is string, meaning we can finally make our bed without having to kill a single spider. I mean, to be fair, this is probably the stupidest way of getting a bed in this challenge. We probably could have got one a lot earlier if we just killed 12 spiders. Oh well, let's just keep exploring. As I'm moving along, I make sure to get as much gold as I possibly can. This stuff will be useful for further trades in the future. Also, it's really weird exploring the Nether for the first time, but with Elytra, You're not supposed to get Elytra until long after you've been exploring the Nether. But with the almost backwards progression we've been going through in this challenge, we've managed to get Elytra really early on, and it makes the Nether so much better. Like, you can just fly between 3 biomes if you get a good enough run, and you don't have to worry about staircases or pillars to get anywhere. Like, look at this is insane. I mean, actually, this is really insane. I should not be gliding into a Basalt Delta biome. If I hit the side of one of those 1x1 pitfalls of death, I could very easily die. So maybe let's not go this way. Anyway, there are a few different structures in the Nether that I'm going to be on the lookout for. The first one is a ruined portal, and these things will have a chest on them with a 20% chance of holding a golden apple. If I can find one of these things, it'll definitely be the safest way of getting the loot I need. Then alternatively, and the way I'll probably end up getting my golden apple, is through a bastion remnant. These places are super dangerous, but they'll have a bunch of different chests inside, each with a 10% chance of a golden apple. Then thirdly, there is the Nether Fortress, which, you know, it would be nice to get one, but there's no loot that I actually want from them right now. While it would be nice to get a few blaze rods and maybe some nether warts, I won't be needing either of those things to progress anywhere from now. And it looks like we found our first structure. This one is a ruined portal, and somewhere in there should be a chest. We just have to dig it out, and inside there is not a golden apple. Kind of annoying, but there was only a 20% chance, so I'm not too sad. Let's keep going. Yeah, it turns out the Basalt Delta is really dangerous. If I didn't have that fire resist potion on my hotbar, I would definitely be dead by now. And this is why you should always have a fire resist potion when you're in the Nether. I mean, ironically, I no longer have a fire resist potion, so if I fall into another lava pit, I am actually dead this time. I think I'm at a good point though, that if I did die from something in the near future, I would be able to recover pretty nicely. Whereas, if I died about 2 episodes ago with my mending pickaxe on hand, I probably could have softlocked the game. Not even kidding. And while we're on the topic of things that could kill me, I think I found my first Nether bastion. This thing will probably have a golden apple in it somewhere, but there's also a huge risk that it will kill me because the piglin brutes do like 13 damage, and I'm not wearing the best armor at the moment. The first chest that I look into has a mending sword, but nothing else that's too useful. I pass over it right now, but I'll eventually come back and pick it up. Next, I have my first encounter with a piglin brute. I was a little taken aback by just how much damage these guys do. For all the good that my armor did, I was still going to die in 3 hits from these guys, so I'm going to need to be really careful in sieging this place. I guess the strat from now on is to just tunnel around the base and attack it from angles where I won't have to get involved in too many fights. Luckily, this strat pays off almost immediately, and I find a chest with a bunch of gold and golden carrots. Nothing too interesting for now, so I keep moving on. I'm trying to stay above the bastion, since I'm pretty sure these guys don't have any way of pathfinding up to the top. Well, they shouldn't have any way of pathfinding up to the top, but I did kind of make them a path to go up. Also, holy crap, I almost died there again. I should really be more careful going into this. Or, at the very least, I shouldn't be relying on melee to do all my damage. From now on, I'm going to try and use a bow as much as possible during fights. And whenever I think there might be more than one enemy, or whenever I just get spooked by some audio cue, I get a little panicked, and I close off all the entrances and exits so I don't get swarmed. If I die out here, then I'll have to come back without Elytra, and that's going to suck. Also, the next chest doesn't have anything useful in it, so let's keep moving on. The next group of enemies is hidden behind some blocks, and they won't be able to attack me just yet. I make quick work of them, and move on down the little staircase that's hiding behind them. Inside, I find another brute, and I use my bow to pick it off slowly. It's pretty terrifying when these guys are chasing you down, because the bow doesn't really do that much knockback. Like, look how close this guy gets. Luckily, things from here go pretty smoothly, and I can just cut between all the chests that I find. There's a few interesting items to get picked up between them, like some string in this one that'll help me make a bed, and some ancient debris in the next one that I can put towards some netherite tools. I even find a Sweeping Edge 3 sword, which will be really good for clearing out the mob farm. Oh, and one more thing before we leave this bastion behind. I found a few pigs down here, and they kinda just pushed each other into lava. Not sure what to make of this, but it was pretty funny, so I left it in the video. Anyway, that is one bastion down, and we haven't got a golden apple to show for it. I'm thinking now might be a good time to go back to base though. My inventory has been getting pretty full, and if I go back, I can make myself a shulker box to extend my next trip out. Unfortunately though, the path I take back turns into a bit of a dead end, and I'm forced to dig through a few blocks to get back out into the open. And that then turns into a lot of blocks I have to dig through. By the time I finally make it out into the open, my pickaxe is in a really bad state. I could repair it using the mob farm since the pickaxe has mending on it, but the mob farm hasn't been the same since Conway's Game of Life turned up. Yeah, it might be a while before this pickaxe reaches full durability again, especially since I kinda want to go exploring as soon as I get back to base, but not before I barter with some piglins on the way home. Thanks guys. Alright, now it's time for a quick pit stop back at base. Oh, and remember when I said that I keep my render distance low for a reason? Well, here is that reason right here. The world I'm playing on is actually the exact same map file from the one block of bedrock upload that I made about 10 years ago. When I made that thing, I used MC Edit to delete a bunch of chunks around the spawn area so that people would probably never be able to see the outside world. Of course, 10 years later that turned out to be pretty untrue, and the easiest fix for me when making the series was to just lower my render distance down. Anyway, back at base I find some piglins that are standing pretty close to an edge, so of course I push them over. Next, I try and get some durability back on the pickaxe by using my Sweeping Edge sword on the mob farm. There weren't too many mobs in here, but one of the zombies managed to drop some iron. And using this iron, I now had exactly enough to make an anvil. So I use it to combine my pickaxe with an efficiency 4 one, and I get this one. Now all that's missing is some Unbreaking 3, which I'll probably try and get from villager trading. And then finally, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm gonna finally make a bed. And not just any bed, I'm gonna make a really cool red bed, using some dye that I got from the rhubarb. Now, I just need the perfect place to put it. There we go. Yeah, I kinda want to get back to the Nether as soon as possible, so making a nice bedroom can wait. For now, the priorities are feeding the chickens and making myself some shulker boxes and food. Okay, now I think we're ready for an actually massive trip into the Nether. So let's cue the music and see what happened. we finally got it. The golden apple that's going to start our villager trading career. It took a really long time to get this thing, by the way. The montage may have made it seem like things were kinda close together, but in reality, I spent about 4.5 hours going through the Nether this episode. And now I don't think there's much left for me to do here. Maybe at some point in the future I'll build a farm or something, but in terms of our progression, the Nether has served its purpose. And oh boy, what a purpose it served. Getting lava this episode has enabled us to make a cobblestone generator, which means infinite cobblestone, infinite moss, and all the stuff that's going to be built from that. Plus, you know, there's the golden apple, and this thing's going to enable us to do villager trading, and all of the overpowered stuff that comes with that. But yeah, that's all going to be a next episode thing. For now, I just want to say thank you so much for making it through this entire video. I know it's been a bit of a weird one. I kind of went off on a few tangents and put a bit of a mishmash together of things. It also turned into a bit of a long video, so if you're wondering why this episode took longer than usual, then there's your answer. Another answer as to why this thing took so long was because I participated in the GMTK Game Jam during one of the weekends. Our game did pretty good in this. Out of over 6,000 games, we managed to make it into the video that showcased the top 20. I mean, we weren't actually part of the top 20, but we were in the honourable mentions section. But not like as an honourable mention. It was more like we were background footage while they had the screen dimmed to black so they could show some Patreon names. And I guess if you're going to be pedantic, it only showed for 1 second. But still, I'm pretty proud of the game we made, so if you want to check it out, there's a link in the description. Anyway, that's all we have time for this episode. Next time, I'm going to try and do some villager trading, but to get there, we're going to need a zombie villager. Well, that was quick. Okay, well, see you next episode. We're going to make this guy into a villager.